Jack Elam was born William Scott Elam Jr. on November 13, 1920, in Ashland, Arizona. Tragedy struck early in his life when his mother passed away just days after his birth. As a result, Elam was raised primarily by relatives, an upbringing that instilled in him a strong sense of independence and resilience. His childhood was marked by frequent moves and economic hardship, experiences that would later inform the rough-edged authenticity he brought to his performances. A defining moment in Elam's life occurred at the age of 2 when he was accidentally stabbed in the eye by a pencil during a childhood accident. The injury left him blind in one eye, resulting in the trademark wandering gaze that would later make him instantly recognizable on screen. Rather than allowing this physical difference to limit him, Elam eventually embraced it, turning what could have been a setback into a defining feature of his screen persona. Before entering the entertainment industry, Elam led a remarkably varied life. He attended Stanford University where he studied business and later worked as an accountant and bookkeeper. During World War II, he served as a combat intelligence officer in the U.S. Navy, participating in dangerous missions in the Pacific Theater. These real-life experiences, discipline, danger, and survival, lent credibility to the hardened characters he would later portray. Jack Elam's path to acting was unconventional. He did not arrive in Hollywood with dreams of stardom, nor was he groomed for leading roles. Instead, his film career began almost accidentally in the late 1940s when he found work as a technical advisor and accountant for film productions. His distinctive appearance soon caught the attention of casting directors, and he began landing small acting roles, often as unnamed henchmen, gunmen, or toughs. Elam made his film debut in 1949, and by the early 1950s he had become a familiar face in westerns and crime dramas. At a time when Hollywood relied heavily on visual shorthand to define characters, Elam's unconventional look made him perfect casting for antagonists and morally ambiguous figures. Yet even in the smallest roles, he stood out. There was something unpredictable about his presence, a sense that his characters were not merely evil but complex, unstable, and deeply human. The 1950s and 1960s marked Jack Elam's rise as one of Hollywood's most reliable character actors, particularly within the Western genre. He appeared in countless Western films and television series including Gunsmoke, Rawhide, Bonanza, The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, and The Big Valley. His characters ranged from ruthless killers and cowardly outlaws to grizzled lawmen and cynical drifters. Elam's work in Western films such as High Noon, 1952, Vera Cruz, 1954, and Rio Lobo, 1970, showcased his ability to convey menace with minimal dialogue. A single glance, crooked, calculating, and unsettling, was often enough to establish tension. Directors valued him not just for his appearance but for his timing, discipline, and professionalism. He understood the rhythm of a scene and knew exactly how to make an impact without overshadowing the story. Despite frequently being cast as villains, Elam resisted caricature. He infused his roles with subtle humor, nervous energy, or weary resignation, suggesting inner lives that extended beyond the frame. This complexity made him a favorite among audiences and filmmakers alike. As Hollywood evolved, so too did Jack Elam's career. Beginning in the late 1960s and continuing through the 1970s and 1980s, Elam increasingly embraced comedic roles, often parodying the very tough guy image he had helped define. His self-awareness and willingness to poke fun at himself revealed a performer with remarkable range and humility. Elam found new popularity through films such as Support Your Local Sheriff, 1969, and Support Your Local Gunfighter, 1971, where he played eccentric, often bewildered characters with impeccable comedic timing. His later collaborations with director Blake Edwards, including The Great Race, 1965, and Cannonball Run, 1981, further showcased his ability to balance absurdity with authenticity. Perhaps most notably, Jack Elam appeared in several films directed by Clint Eastwood, including High Plains Drifter, 1973, and Unforgiven, 1992. In Unforgiven, his performance as a weary, aging lawman carried a poignant sense of reflection, mirroring the film's themes of aging, regret, and moral reckoning. It was a fitting late-career role that demonstrated how Elam's screen presence had matured into something quietly profound. Jack Elam's personal life, though far less publicized than his instantly recognizable screen persona, was marked by deep loyalty, enduring love, and profound loss, experiences that quietly shaped the man behind Hollywood's most memorable crooked-eyed villains. Elam's first marriage was to Jean Hodgert, whom he wed in 1937, long before fame came calling. At the time, Elam was still finding his footing, working various jobs while pursuing education and harboring ambitions that had not yet crystallized into a film career. Their marriage unfolded against the backdrop of the Great Depression and World War II, years that tested nearly every American family, and Gene was a steady presence during this uncertain period of his life. While Elam would later become known for portraying ruthless gunmen and unpredictable outlaws, those closest to him described a far gentler man at home, devoted to routine, family stability, and responsibility. Gene shared in the sacrifices of these early years, supporting him as he balanced work, study, and the slow climb toward acting. Their marriage endured for nearly 24 years, spanning Elam's transition from obscurity to recognition. During this time, he began securing roles in film and television, particularly in westerns, where his distinctive appearance and intensity set him apart. As his career gained momentum in the 1950s, Gene remained a constant anchor, offering emotional grounding amid the demands of Hollywood. Tragically, that long partnership came to an abrupt and devastating end when Gene died of colon cancer on January 24, 1961. Her death was a profound blow to Elam, who had built much of his adult life alongside her. Friends later recalled that the loss left him shaken and deeply grieving, stripping away a sense of permanence he had long relied upon. Remarkably, within 7 months, Elam found love again, a testament not to haste but to his desire for companionship and emotional connection. In August 1961, he married Margaret M. Jennison, a woman who would become his lifelong partner and emotional refuge for more than 4 decades. Margaret entered Elam's life at a moment when he was vulnerable, still mourning his first wife while navigating an increasingly busy acting career. Their bond quickly proved strong, grounded in mutual respect and shared values rather than Hollywood glamour. Margaret stood beside Elam during the height of his fame as he became a familiar and beloved presence in classic westerns and television series. While audiences saw him squint menacingly from beneath a battered hat or sneer from the shadows of a saloon doorway, at home he was known to be warm, humorous, and surprisingly shy. Margaret provided balance, helping him maintain perspective and normalcy despite decades of steady work in an often chaotic industry. Their marriage became one of quiet endurance, unmarred by scandal and defined instead by loyalty and shared life rhythms. The couple remained together for 42 years, a rare achievement in Hollywood and a powerful indicator of the depth of their commitment. Through changing trends in film, the eventual decline of the classic western, and Elam's later life health challenges, Margaret remained steadfast. Their partnership lasted until October 20, 2003, when Jack Elam died, bringing to a close not only a remarkable acting career but also a love story rooted in resilience and devotion. For decades, Jack Elam was known as one of Hollywood's most distinctive character actors, instantly recognizable for his crooked eye, gravelly voice, and ability to make even the smallest role unforgettable. Yet despite working alongside some of the biggest names in the industry, Elam rarely spoke publicly about many of his co-stars. One figure he remained notably quiet about was Henry Fonda, until late in his life when Elam finally shared his thoughts on the legendary actor whose reputation often seemed as towering as his screen presence. Elam first crossed paths with Fonda during a period when Hollywood was still dominated by old studio power structures and rigid hierarchies. Fonda was already a respected leading man, admired for his intensity, discipline, and moral authority on screen. Elam, by contrast, was still carving out his place as a reliable supporting actor, often cast as villains, outlaws, or morally ambiguous figures. Looking back, Elam admitted he approached Fonda with a mixture of admiration and caution. Henry had this way of commanding a room without raising his voice, Elam recalled. You felt it the moment he walked in. He didn't have to announce himself. His reputation did that for him. What struck Elam most, however, was the contrast between Fonda's public image and the man he observed behind the scenes. Audiences often associated Fonda with upright, principled characters, yet Elam noted that the actor was far more complex off-camera. People thought Henry was always serious, always stern, Elam said. But that wasn't the whole truth. He was focused, yes, and sometimes distant, but there was a quiet humor there if you paid attention. Elam acknowledged that Fonda could be intimidating, particularly to younger or lesser-known actors. Fonda's meticulous preparation and insistence on professionalism left little room for ego clashes or sloppy work. Henry didn't suffer fools, Elam admitted. If you came in unprepared, he didn't yell or make a scene. He'd just shut down. And somehow that silence was worse than being chewed out. Yet Elam emphasized that this intensity was rooted in respect for the craft, not cruelty. He believed acting mattered. To him, it wasn't just entertainment, it was responsibility. Despite Fonda's reserved demeanor, Elam remembered moments of unexpected generosity. He recalled instances when Fonda quietly offered encouragement or advice without drawing attention to himself. He wasn't the kind of guy who'd put his arm around you and give a speech, Elam said, but he'd lean over and say something simple, something useful, and you'd carry that with you for years. Elam credited those brief exchanges with helping him gain confidence in an industry that often overlooked character actors. Elam also reflected on Fonda's sense of discipline, which he believed set a standard for everyone around him. Henry showed up on time, knew his lines cold, and respected the crew, Elam stated. Watching him work taught you that professionalism wasn't about ego. It was about commitment. For Elam, who built a career on reliability rather than stardom, that lesson resonated deeply. When asked why he waited so long to speak publicly about Fonda, Elam was candid. "Back then you didn't talk," he said. "You worked, you learned, and you kept your mouth shut." With time and distance, however, Elam felt it was important to acknowledge Fonda's impact. "I didn't always agree with him, and I didn't always understand him," Elam admitted. "But I respected him, and respect lasts longer than gossip." In his final assessment, Elam rejected the idea of Fonda as either saint or tyrant, choosing instead a more nuanced view. Henry Fonda was human, Elam concluded. Talented, demanding, complicated, like the rest of us. But he cared about the work, and that's what matters. When the camera stopped rolling, what stayed with me wasn't his fame. It was his seriousness about doing it right. For Jack Elam, breaking his silence was not about revealing secrets or settling scores. It was about honoring the truth as he experienced it, a truth shaped by shared sets, quiet conversations, and the unspoken bond between actors who understood the weight of the craft they served. On October 20, 2003, the long and remarkable life of Jack Elam came to a quiet close when he died of congestive heart failure at his home in Ashland, Oregon, a place that had come to represent peace, privacy, and reflection in his later years. He was 82 years old, and his passing marked the end of one of Hollywood's most distinctive and enduring character actor careers. Unlike many stars whose final days unfolded under the glare of publicity, Elam's death occurred in the calm and familiarity of his own home, surrounded by the life he had deliberately chosen away from the spotlight. For a man who had spent decades portraying outlaws, gunmen, eccentrics, and unpredictable villains, the setting of his death felt almost poetic, quiet, dignified, and deeply personal. Congestive heart failure, the official cause of death, is often the result of long cumulative strain on the body, and in Elam's case, it came after years of gradual withdrawal from public life. By the late 1990s, he had largely retired from acting, his once constant presence in film and television giving way to a slower, more contemplative pace. Those close to him understood that while his health was declining, his spirit remained sharp. Elam never lost the dry wit, self-awareness, and sense of humor that had defined him both on screen and off. Even in his final years, he remained fully aware of his legacy, often amused by how his unusual appearance, particularly his famously misaligned eye, had become one of the most recognizable faces in classic westerns and crime films.